when it turns out that consciousness is creating life, then you have the option to be the master because you're the one that can change your consciousness and then empower your life. So we're moving out into another world. And this other world says, as the Matrix says, we have to get out of these programs. And these are the programs of dysfunction that are being passed from generation, from culture to culture, up and down the line. We're facing this evolutionary story right now because we're not sustainable. And this is the wake-up call for human civilization. Wake up. Take your power back. Because with your consciousness, you can have heaven on earth for as long as you live. Sounds good.
Incredible. Thank you. I feel like the podcast is over. It just covers so much. It's incredible. So I really loved how you broke down. I mean, we all have results in our lives, financially, in our love life, internally with our health, interrelational dynamics, all these things. And oftentimes when we want to change the result or the fruit on the tree, we focus on that, but you're inviting a perspective to go backwards, go back from the actions which stemmed from, or the results which stem from the actions and behaviors which stem from the thoughts and feelings which stem back to the programs and beliefs, and go to the root, not the fruit, to focus on the changing of it.
That's the most important thing. You know, it's very interesting because I gave a lecture in Tel Aviv at the University of Tel Aviv in Israel, and we bussed in about 300 plus Palestinians from the West Bank that never were there in Israel at all. And I can remember this big auditorium, and all the Israelis were on this side over here, and then the Palestinians were over here. And of course, they were not communicating kind of people. And I started to give them the science of how programming during child development is the issue. And they were like, yeah, nodding, paying attention. Then I put up a slide, and it was black screen, but it said on the top, the problem. And when I pushed the button, two pictures came up side by side. One of them was Israeli kids playing with machine guns. The other picture was Palestinian kids dressed in military uniforms carrying rifles. And I said, look what you're programming these kids. They're going to hate each other. They don't even know each other. And you've been programming this. And I said, this is where your problem is. You've been passing this program generation. And that's why this Mideast issue has been going on so long, because it was passed down to the kids before they were old enough to know what the hell was going on. Okay? Next slide was the solution, black screen, two pictures come up, and it was an Israeli and a Palestinian boys walking down the street with arms around each other, and the other picture was Palestinian and Israeli girl playing together and having a good time. I said, these kids will never fight each other. And all I remember how clearly it was, there was a pause where people stopped. And it was so dead silent, and it was almost like a vacuum. You could hear a pin drop. It dawned on them for the first time in their lives, my God, you're propagating this hatred against each other with kids who don't even know each other, and you just programmed them. And I'll never forget it, because it was like a moment of awakening. And it was so cool, because at the end of that program, out in the foyer, there was a lot of refreshments, and there were whirling dervishes and music. And the next thing you know, they were all talking to each other, the Palestinians and the Israelis, and they were sharing social experience together. But it happened after Wake Up. And it was amazing to see that actually happen. And a couple of friends of ours, Ehab and Aura, quick story, if I got.
Yeah.
Okay. Aura Israeli, she's walking through the Sinai desert with, she came with some other people, was walking alone. And Ehab, Palestinian, he came with his friends, but he was walking alone. And they started coming toward each other, and about 10 or 15 feet apart, they stopped. And they saw each other. And it was like in The Godfather, they were hit by the thunderbolt. They just fell in love. They got married 3 days later. I mean, it was just such a energy boom. And it was really cool. So Ehab goes home and tells his Palestinian family, I married an Israeli girl. His father chased him around the house with a knife because he said, you're a traitor, you sold out. He was going to, stab his own son. Ora went home, told her family she married a Palestinian. They disowned her and said, go. So there was an interesting situation. Now they're more or less isolated from the families. They had a child, a boy, and it got to like 4 years old, I think. And they said, oh my God, we're going to have to send him to school. Where are we going to send him? So they both went to the Israeli school and they saw what was going on. I said, no, we don't want to send our kid to that one. They went to the Palestinian school. No, we don't want to send our kids to that one. Then they went to the Christian school, and they both agreed, we're not sending our kid to that one. So they created their own school called the Garden of Abraham, which is a prophet for both the Israelis and the Palestinians. And young kids, 4, 5, 6 years of age, teachers, Palestinian, Israeli. The kids grow up together. They learn each other's cultures. They play. They have fun. These kids will never, ever fight one another. And it was such a beautiful example that at that conference I lectured at, there were some mayors from some Israeli cities, and they all came up at the end and said, we want a school like that because this is the breakout. It's the programming that takes us on the wrong path. And you put the right programming in, there's no violence anymore. This violence is learned. It's not part of the genetics of an organism.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful example when those pattern interrupts come in and they decide to be the conscious agents to become stewards for a new program, for a new reality. And, as we start to dive into how we actually really can change these programs, because there's many different ones on an individual, societal, systemic, global level. I like how you kind of broke down. I just want to reiterate that these perceptions and programs that we have come from mainly 3 sources: the genetics, our subconscious, and self-conscious.
And very little from genetics.
Yeah. But there is
a minor thing, and it's usually something physical, but not behavioral.
But and also mainly developed through observation in the environment.
Well, that's where the genes come into the story. That's where epigenetics is the new science, and that is the revolution in science, epigenetics.
So between that and then the subconscious, which you kind of eloquently share about how the difference that conscious mind and subconscious have in terms of perception, in terms of 40 bits versus 40 million bits of data that it can actually intake at a single time. And so I would love for you to share a little bit more about that distinction, because we can have a conscious manifestation affirmation practice, and yet the rest of the day we're putting garbage in our environment, and our subconscious mind is picking up. It's always recording it. And then, of course, garbage in, garbage out.